McDonough to come up big like he did on that last series against Iowa? Is that something you've sort of seen building? He's made maybe a lot of plays that maybe don't show up on the stat sheet, but he's just been getting better and better.
I think he's done a great job, and and I think when things like that happen, we always talk about multiplying the pleasure and dividing pain, and you look at that play. If you go back and study that play, the coverage was incredible. Our guys in the back end were doing a great job. The one sack Dom he had 3 guys on him, and allow somebody to be one-on-one. And if you're one-on-one, you got to win, and he did.
And in terms of your defense in general, what do you feel you've been good at so far, and what do you feel like you want to clean up for this next one before the bye week?
Yeah, I think our guys, the attitude and effort and the practice and focus and those things have been incredible, which if you don't have that, nothing else matters. So that's a plus. I think the details of some scenarios, some run fits, some pass coverage fits, just being more decisive and being more trustful that's where I belong and that's where the ball's going, and I can trust that that's the play that I really see and the route that I really see, and I think that'll come as we get going here. I think an area that we have to clean up, if you look at our last 3 games, we have to do a better job of our offense scores. The next drive out, man, we've given up a touchdown about every time after that drive, and as a defense, man, that's when you have a chance to try to close the door and get our guys back the ball, and we haven't done that in the last few games, really since Miami, and we've been really great on punting the ball and going and play defense, get off the field. I think we maybe only given up 1 score in that scenario, but that's one area that we're talking about, and we're looking at it as coaches too. What are we calling? What's different? What's happening? But we've got to be able to stop people when our offense scores and try to get some more margin.
How much of moving Jeremiah to corner was not only because of confidence in his abilities, but also the confidence that you guys had in your younger safeties coming up?
Yeah, a lot, both of those. I think, Jeremiah gives you a veteran, and he could communicate like he's a safety because he's got so much experience. So anything that happens out there on the edges, communication-wise, on his half of the field, he's done a great job for us. And really then the young guys have they were competing and still are competing. And we moved JMO over the field last week because Tay had a great week, and so we were able to get those guys in the game, and they've just done a good job. A lot of growth there yet to go for sure. They're young, but they really work hard at the game.
Yeah, how do you evaluate the safeties so far specifically?
I think they've done a good job. I don't, they're not where they want to be, and it's not where we have to be to go where we want to go. But we're in game 3, and those guys haven't played a ton of football, so I think they're doing great. We've got the same thing, like I told Rob, the details of what I see and where my eyes are, and trusting what I see and believing that's a work in progress yet.
When it comes to surrendering scores after you guys score, is there something specific about that scenario that's happening, or is it random?
It's a great question. We're searching it out. We're working really hard at it. Jace, our analytics director, brought it up again, to the team yesterday, a little bit of just, man, we have to find ways to go out there with a mindset, and again, we've got to sort it out as coaches, and it's got to be something we pay attention to, because it's something that really can allow your team to get, again, get the ball back for our offense. And it's not that we're not trying, that's not it. We're playing good folks too, and they're trying to score after we score. So it's competition and all that, but it's something to pay attention to, and we're certainly diving into it.
For McDonough, the offense had it last year with Jalen Travis. Is there anything specific about bringing in an Ivy League player in terms of what their plan is? And obviously doesn't get here in the spring, has to wait till summer.
I was mentioning to somebody this morning, I think 2 things. One, obviously the learning curve, very sharp, very intelligent, comes in, can learn the defense, can learn the offense, can process it, has a plan on how to handle a day and all those things, very professional that way. And then, I just think too, I think those guys, they come here hungry and humble and thankful and grateful. And I think anytime you enter a program with that mindset, and you have the ability to learn the offense or the defense, you have a great chance of having success. And he's gifted for sure, and the other 2 things have allowed him to have some success faster than probably a lot of people would.
Building off of Travis's question, when you're evaluating a guy who's coming from the Ivy League, is there difficulty of when you're looking at a guy playing at a lower level of trying to imagine what he looks like in
No,
the Power
I
Five?
don't think so. I don't. I think guys can play or they can't. I think you're looking for, and I think around here specifically, we're looking for the right people. I think that's the first and foremost. Again, the two things I brought up are probably as critical as him having ability. The fact that he can come in and, you're only getting them in the summer. So you have to be able to process stuff. You got to be able to learn it, and those guys can. They've been able to, and he has some ability on the videotape. He was excellent, but I just think too. I think who he is, and they just come here with a hunger and humbleness, and thankful and grateful for, nutrition and weightlifting and mental health and all the things that we're able to offer, and I think it's awesome.
How satisfying was it to get those 2 sacks and finish that last drive for Iowa like you guys did?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's we've been here. I've been here 10 years, and we haven't been able to do that. So I think win that game at home. For our fans, and Coach talked about it, for our fans and for our team and this university and all the things that go with it. It was very rewarding. And I think it was great for our players. I think our guys, I sensed that when we were on the sideline, I told Coach, I really felt like our guys were going to go stop them. I just had that feeling. I really, sometimes you can just tell if you're down in amongst it, and I really felt like they were going to go get it done. And I was proud of them, for sure. And we're going to have to continue to get a whole lot better as we move forward here.
And then on a different side of the ball, Taylor Mauser, what kind of energy has he added over the years to this coaching staff? And when was maybe the first time you realized that he could be a pretty good play caller?
Mouse and I got together. We started together at Toledo at the same time. I had come in from Purdue, and Mouse had come in from the streets, I think, wandering around. But I think the one thing you find in this business, there's guys that are. And Coach says it sometimes, trying to be somebody or trying to do something. And I always felt like Mouse was a guy that was trying to do something. Like he always wanted to be a coach. He was always never afraid of work, never afraid of being assigned something. Nothing was ever too small for him to do. And I've been in this business long enough to know that if that's how you are, if you're humble and hungry, you'll make it. And I think, when Coach was talking about making him the offensive coordinator, I wasn't shocked at all. I think he's earned the right to do that. Grew himself from the ground up, and I just think, like I said, I pay attention to that stuff because I think that's really what makes coaches. And he was one of those guys that no matter what was asked of him at Toledo, he did it. And I think the players really respected him for doing it. And I think the coaches did too, if they were paying attention. And I think that's why, he's here. And I think it's a tribute to him and his work ethic, and got a lot of spirit, and he's crazy and all that. And, I think it's good for all of us. I think it's awesome.
Marcus Neal avoided a red shirt last season as a true freshman for you guys. Can you comment on what his growth is from a late addition in that recruiting class, 2024 class, to now starting for you guys as a true sophomore and playing really good football?
Yeah, Marcus was interesting. Excuse me. Marcus interesting. We had our eyes on him all the time, and we just trying to figure out where he would play. I think that was really the only question we ever, where would we fit him in at? And as the more you watched, the more went along, you thought, man, he could be the middle safety in our defense, and which is kind of a, it's kind of like finding Bo. Like, what exactly is he? Some people were looking at him at one spot and some at another, and he was kind of in between size. But you just saw this love and passion for football, and man, he was aggressive and fast and could tackle and tough. And you can always find spots for those guys, and then that's when we kind of got him into the middle safety part. And, man, he's done a great job there. Still learning, but done a great job.
Coach, you get this road trip on Saturday, running quarterback. It's going to be like 100 degrees. What kind of a challenge does Arkansas State present?
Yeah, it's a real challenge, Chris. I think anytime, but it's a great challenge for us now because I think it's what we're going to get into here as we work down through this whole process. So I think it's a great challenge for our guys. I think very talented guys, the speed of the game on turf, all the things. We have not played that yet. So that becomes a sense of urgency for our team. Defensively, we're going to have to play multiple people. So, if you're on the bus or on the plane, you're going to play, and you better get ready to play, and you're going to have to handle the moments. And I think it's a great challenge for our guys. I'm excited about it because we have not seen it yet. and I think it'll be, I think they do a great job of it. I think they go really fast, and they've got really talented people, and it'll be awesome for us to have to go compete and figure out if we got a handle on it.
One more follow-up on Marcus Neal. I think back in his high school career, he had played mainly like wide receiver, correct?
Right.
Now, what does he maybe take from playing on that offensive side of the ball, and then you see more defense his senior year? How's that kind of carried over?
Yeah, I think you have to, those guys, I think they have to want to, to move to the other side of the ball. It's been like some of the guys that have come here as wideouts and moved over. But I think, for him, he was just a guy that loved, and we told him early on what we were looking at him as, and looking at him as our defensive player. And, I think he just has the want to be great at whatever he would be asked to do. He has a tremendous spirit about himself, the way he practices, the way he walks in the hallways. He's contagious, and he's great to have around.
Coach, that last drive on Saturday, I know the personnel switched up. I think McLaughlin was coming off the edge. What's the fun part for your job when you can have the offense on their heels in those situations and get super creative?
Well, yeah, it's good to know exactly kind of where the clock was in our favor. Those kind of things were in our favor, and I think as a defensive coach calling the defenses there, I think early in the down you're not sure exactly because there is some time on the clock. Obviously with the timeouts they had to take one of those, and so then we were able to sub and get our end of game, our kind of nickel dime personnel in the game. And we were able to change up a couple things with what we did and what we've shown on videotape, and our players executed it. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, you watch the plays. There's really nobody open. The guys are rushing the passer. Our spy Caleb Bacon was doing a great job, and it was kind of it was really a great for me to see, because it's what I tell the kids all the time. If something good happens, you're just one piece of something good happening, and I think that was a great example of it.
I don't know if you watched the game copy of the broadcast, but
No.
Gus Johnson told a couple stories about Coach Campbell and Taylor Mauser, and Coach Campbell giving Mauser his debit card back at Toledo to pay for a date with his girlfriend.
Okay.
Mauser breaking up with his girlfriend because
Okay.
he was so committed to working for Coach Campbell here.
Okay.
What do you remember about those moments, and I guess how do you see that come through in his
I was
commitment to
unaware
the
of that
program?
moment. I don't think I ever got a credit card, but I guess I was married, so I didn't need it. But like I said, I just think when he got there again, we kind of got to Toledo at the same time. I had been there once before, but as I said earlier, I just think when you look at young people that come in, you're always trying to, and I don't care what, probably in your business, how can you add value to the group that you're working with or for? And I think Mouse tried to add value every day, whether it was with a player or whether it was going to get something or do something or cut up videotape or meet with kids off the field, recruiting, whatever it was. And if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to try to add value and you're humble about it and you don't care what size the job is or getting any credit, you'll ultimately end up doing okay for yourself. And I would guess that's true in every business. And, I'm glad for him. I think he's earned the right to do what he's doing. He's doing a great job with those guys. And we got to continue to find ways to get those guys the ball more. And that's what our job is on our side.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Thank you, Coach.
That's a great story. I'm going to research that one.
I can see if I can find the timestamp in the game.
I want to go ask the source.
Good job, bud. Let's see, put Campbell in the credit card.
I think he said debit card on the broadcast. Did I say credit card?
You said debit card.
Be such an outrageous story for Gus Johnson to just make up.
Gus was on the inside.
I just can't. I can't.
He always
He's just taking
Two jobs already out of I was out of the job. Guess it's not the coach. I'm assuming. Yo, come on, right?
Matt, I wanted to circle back to your talk about being little bit concerned going into this last week before the first bye, and just is fatigue an issue? And the second part of that question is, going back to last season and this season, you're seeing things where a lot of teachable moments to fix on film, but finding ways to win so many games. How do you balance those two things, being proud of where you're at, but also knowing you've got so much to chip away at to be great?
Yeah, I think that's where you talk about those things really all year round. This isn't just because there's a win or a loss in the win column, in my opinion. I think these are the things that we knew would be great challenges for this particular season. I think these are things we have, addressed and really kind of tried to pound away at since January. And so, I think the positive for us is we felt like we would be in some of these areas. We knew the physical and mental challenges that would come with, in my mind, this is really we're in the second quarter of our football season, as we looked at our calendar. And, what would that look like, both physically and mentally? And what would the challenges be with last week? What would the challenges be with this week? And not even just from a opponent situation, more so internally, and I think you can do all the research you want, but the reality of fatigue and both mental and physical, I think, has paralyzed everybody in Ireland. And the reality of it is, I think even what we've been able to do so far probably would be a little bit a notch ahead of maybe what some of those other teams have been able to do. And I think that's the challenge this week. Can we not, great teams, and I said this Saturday, great teams get better. And the thing that can cause you not to get better is either you think you've arrived, and that's ego and entitlement, or there's physical fatigue that you're not tough enough, or the character to work through that. And all those things will be tested with our football program right now.
And second two-parter is that because you did the deep dives with the sleep specialist, did all the things you could possibly do to prepare for that game and the aftermath. A, is one of the things that there can be residual effects, and B, then going and playing 100-degree weather on Saturday too.
Yeah, I think for all those things are real, and all those things are obviously would be an excuse if we didn't get better this week. And so I think understanding that, talking through those things and addressing it, and then you have a choice. Do you do what you need to do? I mean, it's going to be hot everywhere, not just in Jonesboro, right? I mean, so the reality of it is, I think the last scrimmage we had, it was at 4 o'clock and 107-degree feels like temperature, and we had 124 reps. So we've been there, we've had this, we've prepared for this. And, the reality of it is we also know what it takes, physically to prepare yourself to do that. So, I think that's a thing. And then obviously, our ability to understand the urgency that it takes to get better, and, knowing that you're asking 18 to 22-year-olds to continue that course. And so I think there's obviously great challenges in front of it, but I also think we've got great leadership and young men that understand what those challenges look like, and hopefully they've already addressed and had the ability to address, what are the proper steps that we need to do to ensure that we grow this week.
Brett Eskleton showed some flashes of promise at the end of last season. How has he impressed you the most since then?
Honestly, the most impressive part of Brett was spring ball and fall camp. You guys are seeing the product of what he did and what he's done. I mean, to me, Brett was a wow figure coming out of spring ball. He had an incredible spring. Probably would have been, as good as I've seen, in a long time around here. And then what he did was double down with that in fall camp. And I just thought, his consistency, I think he has very similar mannerisms to the great receivers that we've had here, the Knowles, the Higgins, the Hutchisons, how he practices, how he prepares, his availability. I think just the consistency that he plays the game with has been really impressive. And for him to come in with that, I mean, for a guy like Brett to be able to have such meaningful, critical reps last year, he was a lead on special teams for us last year. I think it was him and Darian as the gunners, the majority of the time, last season. And he just earned trust really fast with how he prepared. And then it was like, ooh, it's like he's morphed into this, what I would say really trusted football player within our football program, but his process of preparation is really what's elevated him.
And going back to the earlier point about preparation for Ireland and handling that, do you address K-State struggles with your team? Like, does that ever come up as like a cautionary tale for, hey, we need to stick to our plan and how we did it?
No, I think every other team that's played in Ireland is cautionary tale enough. Nobody's done it. Nobody's had success. So the reality of this is what it's looked like, and there's great programs and great teams that have been able to have played in the game and had the opportunity to have success, but they didn't. And so I think the honesty is, hey, this is what we've signed up to do. This is the challenge at hand, and how are we going to try to conquer this collectively, because we're all going to have to be able to do it really well.
Matt, what have you told your players about the opportunity that Arkansas State has this week?
Well, I don't. The nice thing is we have so many players that we played in these games and failed. And to be honest with you, like the reality of it is the respect first and foremost for Arkansas State. I mean, this will be the best quarterback, in my opinion, that from a mobility, throw ability, playmaking ability standpoint that we're going to play. He's got all the tools, and we saw that last year against him here, and we've seen what he was able to do post our game a year ago. And then you got Butch Jones, who's been phenomenal culture builder, team builder. Cincinnati, Tennessee, what he did last year with that Arkansas State team, and man, they've got great skill. And so on both sides of the ball, the video helps you, our experiences of our past failures help you, and then the reality of it is, man, it's game 4, and there's a lot on that videotape from Saturday that we didn't do well, that we need to do better if we want to be the team we want to be. So I think collectively, we've got a lot of videotape evidence to help ourselves grow forward.
Matt, I thought the wide receiver subbing was really interesting at the end of the game, because you've seen Xavier, he popped against South Dakota. Chase had the 2 catches late in this one. Are they coming around? Like, are you seeing more? Are you trusting those guys more now that they've had the reps?
Yeah, and I think it'll only continue to grow. I think, Chris, I think I said earlier, maybe before the season started, I think it's just you're not going to know that room until midway through the season. And there's a lot of talent. A lot of those guys were dinged up for fall camp. Brett was probably the only mainstay that practiced all through fall camp. And the rest of those guys, it was really hard for us. I was really concerned early in the season just because, those guys didn't have the reps with Rocco. The positive is, going into K-State, we were able to at least get those guys back on the practice field. And then I just think it's going to be a growth experience, let alone playing in game environment. But those practice reps are critical. And so I just think time is what we need to continue to pound away at it. But what's been fun is you feel like every game somebody different has stepped up, and Brett's kind of been the mainstay for the last 3 weeks for us. So excited to see what that room will continue to evolve into. We think it's really talented, maybe collectively as talented top to bottom as maybe what we've had. And, there's still some young guys down there that, haven't even got their opportunity yet that we think got superstar potential. So it's going to be fun to watch that group go. But, man, there's only one football, and there's some pretty good tight ends, and there's some pretty good wide receiver or running backs, and a pretty darn good O-line. So, it's just going to have to be, man, who makes the most of their opportunity every Saturday for us.
Matt, you bring in Jalen Travis last year from Princeton. This year it's Tomato McDonough from Yale. What is it about Ivy League guys that your staff has identified to be good fits for the program? Is there something in particular that you just like about Ivy League guys?
No, I like guys that are smarter than all of us. So, that helps first and foremost. But, I just think from my end, both of these young men have very similar traits. They're, number one, mature. They've challenged themselves and had great playing careers. Both of them played a ton of football. Yale has had a tremendous program as well and understands what it means to play championship level football. So I think Tama's got a little bit of that as well to his pedigree when the recruiting process came. And then, I just think from the collective character piece of it, the work ethic, I've said this about Tama, and really it was the same with Jalen. Every single day that those guys were here, those guys, you can just visibly see them getting better. And Tama has been the same way, in the hard part is you got to wait till May, until they graduate. And that was kind of both of their situations. So you don't get them for spring ball. So you kind of feel like it's a slow boil as those guys slowly kind of get their footing. And then once they have some confidence, boy, they can really go. And I think Tama's in that boat. And, I thought was exceptional on Saturday. And I only think he'll get better. I think he's got all the physical traits and the physical tools to be really, really special for this football team. And obviously, we're really grateful that we have him here.
What's the backstory of the tight end pop pass play where the quarterback has the option to keep it?
Yeah. Well, the backstory would be I had to play high school football in the wing tee, right? And I had to play tight end, and I was always praying that we would pass the ball someday. And someday I was wishing that I would get more than 10 catches in a season, you know? And one of the go-to pass plays in the wing tee is the tight end pop pass. So we've got them. We've got a million of them, from the dumps to the pop passes, and I probably nobody's thrown more of those in college football over the last 10 years than us. So just been a foundation of who we are offensively, and you go back to your roots a little bit, wing tee pop passes. So that's the foundation of that play.
Is that a fun part of being a college football coach, where you could say, hey, like, I always wanted to do this in high school, and now
Yeah.
I get to do it in the Big 12?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It is fun for us. You know, between me and Mouse, I think nobody loves to get the ball more to those guys and try to find ways to be creative with it. But, you know, I mean, boy, that play, and I probably didn't realize how unbelievable the catch was until watching the videotape afterwards. But, I mean, it play design, great. Honestly, the play Gabe makes on it is exceptional. I mean, the tip ball play is great, but that play is incredible. I mean, it's his left hand, he spins around, and just a big-time play, and Gabe's kind of made so many of those plays for our football team this fall already, playing at a really special level for us.
I think when this game against Arkansas State was scheduled, college football was probably in a different spot in terms of playoff access, financial realities. You guys go to, I think, Bowling Green in a couple of years. What are your thoughts on these group of 5 road games and how it fits into the larger picture of what you guys do, both on the field and financially, I guess?
Yeah, it's probably really hard for me to answer that. You know, it's probably a better Jamie question than mine. You know, I don't really have any say in scheduling. The only time I've ever been asked anything on scheduling was Ireland. So, you know, we play the schedule that's given to us, and you know, you get 12 guaranteed opportunities, and no matter where you go or who you play, that's kind of what's in front of you. And I think that the fun thing about being a college coach is what's that challenge look like, seeing it before the season starts, and then trying to put the best plan together to be able to be as successful as you can be with the challenge at hand.
Coach, we ask a lot about former players having success in the NFL. I don't think we've asked about Alex Golish and his success so far this season at USF. How cool is it for you to see what he's done so far?
Yeah, you know, really neat. I think a really cool weekend last weekend, just in terms of Jason Candle becomes the winningest coach at Toledo last weekend, which was really awesome. I mean, Jason and I started at Toledo. You know, really that whole group, Alex, myself, Jason, you know, were the first staff at Toledo back whenever we started there. And to see him have the success that he's had and sustained it, and what Alex is building right now at South Florida, you know, you're really excited for those guys. And those guys would tell you they've had great mentors along the way. It was just cool that we were able to be at the same place at the same time. Those guys have all had great effects on me, and it's awesome to watch what those guys are doing, and certainly you know what those guys are about and what they stand for. So fired up for those guys.
A season ago, I think Marcus Neal and Brett Eskelton were the only 2 freshmen that avoided a redshirt for you. What's the challenge of a true freshman being able to do that, and then as a sophomore be able to impact both offense and defense the way that they have?
Yeah, you know, I think what you hope is, the one nice thing is if you've earned the right as a freshman, especially if your team is good and playing good football, boy, you got to be really talented as a freshman to be able to get on the field and impact winning. And those 2 guys were able to do that. And, you know, obviously both of those players started on special teams, and then, you know, as the season kind of progressed last year, their role elevated to offense and defense. And, you know, I think what you hope that gives you is confidence. And, you know, I always say every year, everybody wants to know what's your team going to be like, and I always respond, you have no idea until you play under the lights and until you get game reps and game experience. And, you know, I think what both those guys did is use their game experience last year to give them great confidence to go into the offseason I think what those guys both, and just like I talked about Brett, like Marcus Neal, if you come to practice, man, it is like that guy is a wrecking. He can wreck practice, just because he plays at one speed and he plays with such great consistency. He loves football. And, again, I think what he had is those traits early to come in and be really a consistent practicer, which got him on the field early. And then he gained the confidence last year to really help this football team. I think he was playing in a perfect role, got the reps, obviously, in the bowl game, and then, really doubled down and had a great spring and great fall camp. So not only did those guys get experience, but then they used it and they went to work in the offseason to really prepare themselves to have elevated roles on our football team.
Man, just a little health status check. Aiden Flora, Willick, Bohr, how are they? And just in general, how are you from an injury/illness standpoint?
Yeah, I think we're doing probably as good, at least at this point of the season, as we've been. I think Trev's probably got a real chance to play Saturday, which is really good. I'd say Aiden and Carson probably are both questionable right now, but I think Trev, we feel really confident that he's got a chance to be back, at least in a limited role, maybe a full-time role. We'll see what that looks like this weekend, but yeah, I feel really good about at least where our football team is right now compared to, where we've been at times. He didn't in the second half of the game. He got dinged up right before half, and we just kind of made the decision that it was probably not in his best interest. But he'll be ready to go this weekend. Yep. Thanks, guys. Thank you.